I'm actually filming this video before the sun even comes up because it seems like Sony is trying to force a Last of Us remake, and it's coming at a terrible cost. What's up, gamers? Dreamcast Guy here, and this is, strangely enough, this is my first time being on camera in a couple weeks. I've been just doing all the reviews and stuff, so thank you and hello to all the new subscribers. Thanks to everybody for liking the heck out of the videos. Now I want to try and dig into this. Sony's obsession with blockbuster titles is stirring unrest within the PlayStation empire. So this is the latest gigantic leak by Jason Schreier over on Bloomberg. Now I've read this entire article. It is very, very long. It is very, very wordy, but I want to actually just dig into specific aspects of it because it's kind of confusing and it's almost making like a morbid curiosity because it sounds like Sony does not know how to make the PlayStation 5 a hit. They don't know exactly what they're doing, to the point at which it sounds like maybe they're canceling Days Gone 2. It sounds like they're just forcing people to make a Last of Us remake even though they're not ready for it. Now let's begin this article with the biggest bombshell of all, which is the fact that it's the Last of Us remake and who's making it. Sony's Visual Arts Service Group has long been the unsung heroes of many hit PlayStation games. The San Diego-based operation helps finish off games designed by other Sony studios, with animation, art, and other content in development. But about 3 years ago, a handful of influential figures within the Visual Arts Group decided that they wanted to have more creative control rather than being supportive actors on popular titles such as Spider-Man and Uncharted. Michael Moonbarb, who founded the Visual Arts Service Group in 2007, recruited about 30 game developers internally and from neighboring game studios to form a new development unit within Sony. The idea was to expand on some of the company's most successful franchises, and the team began working on a remake of the 2013 hit The Last of Us for the PlayStation 5. But Sony never fully acknowledged the team's existence or gave them the funding and support needed to actually make the game. Instead, Sony moved ownership of The Last of Us remake to its original creator Naughty Dog, a Sony-owned studio behind many of the company's best-selling games. Now let's just talk about this real quick before I even get into the rest of this, including how it seems like Days Gone 2 is canceled, how it sounds like Sony is just kind of screwing things up. Let's just quickly talk about how this is kind of stupid. Look, I love The Last of Us. The Last of Us Part 1, in my opinion, is still one of the best PlayStation 3 games ever made. I think it's actually one of the best visual storytelling devices ever. The way it manages to combine together really gory combat, really heartfelt cutscenes and stuff. It is that really delicate blend of storytelling, universe building, and fright. But here's why I feel like it's weird to actually make it again. It's already aged so well. And additionally, let me just actually throw this out here. You know what else came out in 2013? We got two games in 2013. We got Grand Theft Auto 5, and we also got The Last of Us. Imagine if they were doing a remake of Grand Theft Auto 5. Like, that's how recent this is. It's crazy to think about the fact that them trying to sit down and remake a game that still looks and plays and functions just as well as it did back then. But this is technically only the beginning of the troubles. The team's failure highlights the complex hierarchy of video game development, and in particular, Sony's conservative approach to making games for the PlayStation 5. The Japanese conglomerate owns about a dozen studios across the world, part of its PlayStation Studios label, and in recent years, it's prioritized games made by its most successful developers. Studios like Sony Santa Monica, California-based Naughty Dog, and Amsterdam-based Guerrilla Games, which are basically stuff like, obviously, 2018 God of War, Last of Us Part 2, like these things are selling tons. Also, interesting note, the PlayStation 4 has sold 114 million units. So that makes sense. They're trying to compete with Microsoft. Microsoft has taken the opposite approach, relying on a wide array of studios to feed its Netflix-like subscription Xbox Game Pass, which allows users to pay a monthly fee. So here is the biggest problem, is that Sony is in this weird space where they have a gigantic slot machine. They have these couple studios that keep churning out huge, profitable hits back to back. And so instead of trying to experiment, instead of trying to be groundbreaking and innovative, they just keep walking up to the slot machine and pulling the lever again and again. All right, let's just make Uncharted 3. Let's make Uncharted 4. Let's make Uncharted 5. Like, it feels really strange at times that we're entering this era where as graphics become more lifelike, as power becomes more accessible, games could become more groundbreaking, more crazy than they've ever been, but instead they're becoming much more standard. Now, this is not specifically an attack against Sony. This isn't me trying to, make Microsoft happy. This is just me saying that it's strange that we're in a time period where Microsoft and Sony, as much as Sony has so much power right now, as much as the PlayStation 5 is still just exploding in sales, it's weird to me that they won't just take at least one or two calculated risks. But I want to go back to this. Sony's focus on exclusive blockbusters has come at the expense of niche studios within the PlayStation organization, leading to high turnover and less choice for players. Last week, Sony reorganized a development office in Japan, resulting in a mass departure of people who worked on less known but acclaimed games such as Gravity Rush and Everybody's Golf. Now, this sucks to me because, honestly, Gravity Rush is one of the most creative PlayStation Vita games that's ever existed, but now the PlayStation Vita itself is also getting the axe. At this point, if you're not able to make an astronomical amount of money, you're kind of getting the boot. But here's actually the part that I want to talk about the most, which is actually the thing that's been sticking in my mind. The fixation on teams that churn out hits is creating unrest across Sony's portfolio of game studios. Oregon-based Sony Bend, best known for the 2019 open-world action game Days Gone, tried unsuccessfully to pitch a sequel that year, which means that 2 years ago, everybody remembers this. Like, Days Gone came out, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. To be completely honest, I think the game was a bit bland at times, but it was interesting, and it sold a huge chunk. Here we are. The game was profitable, but it really received mixed critical reception, so Days Gone 2 hasn't been seen as a viable option. Sony basically said, screw your ideas, screw trying to grow, screw trying to do something bigger and better for your sequel. You can't do it. Like, that's the weirdest part of this, is that Sony has, they made so much money on Days Gone. Like, it already made a humongous amount of profit. Let them try again. Let them do something bigger and better the next time. But Sony is just saying no because it's not making enough money for their taste. There was this big tweet going around just yesterday that kind of stoked some thought in me, which is that I've noticed that there has been a lot of very strange anger directed towards Sony and Microsoft. It feels like the console wars are kind of ramping up in a way that they haven't before because Microsoft is buying just so many gigantic studios. But here's the tweet itself. I see a lot of Sony is asleep at the wheel takes, and I really disagree with this. Sure, Microsoft is making waves with the announcements and deals, but these are kind of easy when you have a lot of money. The hard part is making great games, and Sony is still crushing that. Now, Spawnwave, of course my good buddy, he replies here and said, once Sony gets things going this generation, we'll probably forget about this quiet time from them early on. Agreed, this quiet period should be significantly shorter than what happened with the PlayStation 4 when they were like, wait, this thing is selling. This has honestly kind of created a fascinating duality within PlayStation, which is that, honestly, they're making less and less games. Like, the space between major releases, the gaps are becoming enormous, but whenever PlayStation drops a game, it's so high quality, it's getting like a 95 on Metacritic. It's getting talked about in Game of the Year conversations. Like, we're in a spot now where Sony has the machine. They're able to just print out these insane games, but at the cost of kind of taking their tinier developers, the creative teams, and shoving them into a broom closet. Now, I want to read a bit more of the article here because they talk a bit more about the craziness of The Last of Us remake. At the time, Naughty Dog is in the thick of development on the sequel of The Last of Us Part 2, which would introduce higher fidelity graphics and new gameplay features. If Moonbar's crew remade the first game to have a similar look and feel, the two games could be packaged together for the PlayStation 5. In theory, this would make a less expensive proposition than remaking Uncharted, because that's what they wanted to do at first. Is the idea was that if they made Uncharted 1 again, that game definitely could use an update. I've recently replayed some of the early Uncharted games. As much as I loved them back on the PlayStation 3, they're a bit raw now. The Last of Us is more of a modern and wouldn't require too many gameplay overhauls. Then once Mubar's group had established itself, they could go on to remake the first Uncharted game. This is the craziest part, is the idea of like your boss coming in and saying, oh, do you want to work on this project that makes money? We have to make this project that makes money first. I mean, it makes sense, but it's still weird of the idea of these people that have so much power, so much energy, so much skill, but they're being channeled only in a laser-focused sense. They're only allowed to do these very specific things in very specific orders. The last thing we need to look at is honestly just this quote right here, because this seems just kind of shocking to me. To be perfectly honest, I'm conflicted, but let's look at this. So basically what happened is going from finishing work, just working on other people's projects, to suddenly working on their own thing, Sony basically wouldn't allow it. You're competing against hundreds of other teams from all over the world with varying levels of experiences and successes. The people funding the work are often risk adverse, and they're trying to pick between a team that's done it before and someone trying to do it for the first time. I see why they pick the prior developer over the latter. Here's my thought, is that Sony... I love my PlayStation 5. I do think that what's happening right now, my biggest fear with the PlayStation 5, if I can just be completely clear, the machine is fantastic. I think the power is good. The hardware is good. I mean, honestly, I still love this controller so freaking much. My fear right now is not even necessarily like a creativity crisis. Instead, my thought is just kind of like, I think that Sony needs more than just gigantic blockbusters. I am absolutely in love with Spider-Man. I'm very, very thankful that Miles Morales managed to be as great as it was. I'm excited for the next Spider-Man 2 game, but my thought is that there is not enough filler content. Like, it sounds crazy that I'm actually asking for this, but it's weird that Sony just releases these gigantic bangers and then disappears into the darkness. They drop God of War 2018, everybody loves it, everybody's losing their mind, people are getting like God of War tattoos and stuff, and then suddenly you don't hear a single peep from them for years and years and years. My problem with this is that we're just in this time period where Sony comes out, they release a gigantic AAA release that everybody loves, that makes all the money, things like Ghost of Tsushima that just explode in popularity, and then we have nothing for such a long period of time. They need more AA releases. They need a chance to actually greenlight more projects that maybe aren't going to be 100 hours long, or maybe have some sort of like gigantic sweeping soundtrack. Make some stuff in here that's going to be fun. Make more like 10-hour experiences. To me, it is just a bit of a letdown that I wish that there was two different steps of Sony to this. Make the indies, make the higher budget projects, and then make the huge stuff that's basically an interactive film. You can do all of it if you just had a little bit more of an open mind. But what do you think about all this? Are you as conflicted as I am about the idea of a Last of Us remake? Do you think a Last of Us 2 remake or a Last of Us 1 remake would actually sell, especially if they packaged it together with Last of Us Part 3? This is strange, and in my opinion, I think this is probably some bad news overall. We'll see how this actually plays out. I'm trying to work on a big review for a bunch of different stuff at once. Thanks everybody that's been subscribing again. It's just been crazy. The love has been absolutely insane, but you guys rock and keep dreaming. Like this video. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.